There have been some
Yeah.
really ridiculous and salacious allegations against Zoran that have been amplified by folks. That I was back and forth about whether or not to engage in the first place, right? Because you don't want to give more oxygen or attention to this kind of thing. But I figured, as a public service announcement, I can sort of take us through this, and we can kind of get our facts straight here. So I'm going to bring this up just really briefly, and don't bother any of these people. But this got seen by 1.4 million people, right? So you got to kind of respond to it. This person posted a photograph of Zoran. The caption says, "As mayor of New York City, I would arrest Benjamin Netanyahu," and then saying in September 2025 that Zoran, quote, says, "Arresting Netanyahu would make me a Trumpian fascist." Zoran never said that. It's kind of a bizarre lie, and this New York Times story that we're going to get into is kind of amazing because it's actually one of the main focuses of some recent reporting on Zoran is how people are frustrated that he will not back down off of this. What it seems to be the sourcing from this, and what people were trying to say, is that Zoran said to Mehdi Hassan that in arresting Benjamin Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu, he was interested in following international law. Like, he wasn't just going to arrest political enemies of his. So he was doing something very smart there, was differentiating himself from somebody like Donald Trump, who is actively engaged in these kind of punishing of political opponents.
He's doing a vocabulary term that they teach you probably around third grade, which is known as contrast.
Ooh, well, this is going to be a big
You
problem.
know,
Yeah.
that's crazy though, David, because I saw a reply today where somebody said like it would make him a Trumpian fascist. I had no idea what they were referring to. I had not seen that sort of fake quote. That's crazy that's traveling like that.
Yes. So, and we're bringing that up to start because that's not the focus of today, just because it's going to be interesting as we go into this New York Times piece that everybody's been kind of quoting and questioning and wondering what's going on here. That, like, one of the big fixations of the piece is the fact that Zoran has not backed down off of this, and how the New York Times thinks it's a major problem. I'm not going to pick on anybody. I decided we won't pick on anybody here. But basically, what has been getting shared has been excerpts from this piece here inside the improbable, audacious, and so far unstoppable rise of Zoran Mamdani. And in it, let me just make this. In it, there is this line, which you will find if you open up your Twitter account right now, being quote tweeted by many, many people asking themselves, wait, what does this mean? Right? The line says, Zoran supports Palestinian rights. He's not anti Zionist. He's made concessions when it comes to policing, and he said he's open to compromise when it came to this proposed millionaire's tax. Call it Mamdani 2.0. And let's start here, because this is kind of an amazing thing to see certain folks who are, media literate, understand things, repeating, taking a screenshot of this and be like, what does this mean? Well, this is a New York Times reporter categorizing their understanding of Zoran's politics. I think Joe Road on Twitter actually had a very good response. I just want to highlight here first. The New York Times is a self-described Zionist publication that
Right.
manufactured consent for a genocide and called Zoran's primary win a, quote, spiritual Krishtonaut. Why any leftist would trust their characterization of Mamdani's as, quote, not anti-Zionist is baffling to me. And I think that is just like perfect in the first reaction. But what is being talked about here, and I'm going to do a public service for everybody. We will go through the piece, and I will actually show you what it is that he's talking about inside of this piece in a second. Do the work for folks who, I guess, have no interest in actually like reading any of these things or engaging with any of this stuff, just coming up with fabulous conspiracy theories and new stories to tell about one of the most exciting political campaigns and one of the strongest pro-Palestinian movements in American politics. But one of the things that is so incredible here is, as they noted there, is that this is a categorization by a New York Times reporter, not a quote, not a position, and we can investigate whether something. But like, if you're saying like, oh, it looks like Zoran's changed his position here, you should say, okay, well, where's the sourcing on this? Where is he saying it? What is he doing? Oh, this is just some guy's understanding of Zoran who's writing about it. What they are talking about is the position that Zoran Mamdani has held from the get-go. which is a brilliant position. Amanda, you can kind of help me weave through why it is so brilliant here. But the position is when he gets asked on the question of Israel, which every single Zionist in the country asks him time and time again, do you believe that Israel has the right to exist? Zohran Mamdani responds, and he says, Israel has a right to exist as a state with equal rights for all. Can you explain why that's a big problem?
Yeah, that's fundamentally that's part of the myth of Israel for liberal Zionism that such a thing is possible. It is not. You cannot. Israel is not set up to do that. They have no intention of doing that. And so, basically, you can say like I am supportive of this thing that they can never do, but fundamentally, the object of Zionism is to have a supremacist Jewish state in that region. We're seeing the foundations of that being built in front of us. That's what someone like Miriam Edelson wants. So that's a challenge but that's a challenge that Zionists can't openly say we don't care yet. Now, when Trump says one state or two state, that kind of worries me because the whole problem with the one state solution, where Palestinians aren't given the franchise, and they couldn't because there's too many people there. They would outnumber Jews, which again Zionism can't permit. The problem with a one-state solution is that's not a democracy then, because again you're not going to let those people vote, and then it's apartheid, which is what we know it is anyway. But this is why we're in this sort of fiction of legal limbo where Israel is our closest ally, but they can't define exactly where their borders are. And so that's why like that challenge is the perfect line, because it is fundamentally anti-Zionist. But in our media, the way it's talked about, they're not having that conversation of like where they're willing to say like, actually, that's not a hurdle Israel's ever going to jump. So what do we do next?
No, yeah. 100%. It puts them on the back foot. It's been a phenomenal answer all the time. Every time he gets asked it, because there is a charged media environment that has tried to push this. Now, all that being said though, Matt, like that's been the position of Zohran forever. Now, I don't know about you. I have a feeling I can guess. Would it be a problem for you if Zohran started taking a pro-Zionism position?
Yeah, it would. And also, just one note, we didn't mention this last week, but his statement on October 7th was basically copy paste of his statement the year prior before he was a mayoral candidate. Which
it was a great statement as well.
Yep, exactly.
So that would be a big problem if Zohran is becoming an anti-Zionist. So here's what we're going to do here on Left Reckoning for our wonderful audience and all the folks tuning into this video. We're going to take a look at this article and see where this information and this big heel turn comes, because I'd be very upset if I found out that Zohran had kind of changed his mind on these kind of positions. Now, it's a long article. So let's say I'm just somebody who's learning about how to use the computer and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. What should I do? Maybe I'll do some keyword searching and see about relative areas. Oh, shit. That's kind of interesting, right, Matt? This note here. Big pull quote. None of this works without him speaking up on Gaza. Talking about Zohran Mamdani, we have it, coming up right next.
Yeah, I mean,
Here's the quote. Sorry, the pull quote pulled me out. None of this works without him speaking up on Gaza, in pull quotes, said Gaspard, the former Obama administration aide, who likened it to Barack Obama's opposition to the Iraq War. Gaspard has been a key figure connecting Mamdani with many of the city's power players in the months. For the average person on the ground, and this is important, okay, so maybe he is vacillating on this. Maybe what he's saying is like his timidness on Gaza is important. No, for the average person on the ground having conversations in their barbecues or on their stoops, there's a way that this issue of Gaza is a gateway to whether or not you can invite this political figure into your living room for a conversation about affordability or education or healthcare, Gaspard said, citing new polling that shows growing disapproval of Israel's actions among Democrats. Quote, you don't get to first base on the other things if you haven't come out in the batter's box against Gaza. Okay, so the major quote here on Gaza that we're seeing in this piece is about how much it matters to the success of Zohran, right? Not really. Oh man, he's kind of betrayed his politics here, right, Matt?
Yeah, and even the sort of New York Times summary of this here cites this oh crap, where did I just lost it?
I can zoom in.
Oh yes, Mamdani's own allies. Okay, here we go. The issue which he's most steadfast on has been the central to his political identity support for Palestinian causes. In our interviews, Mamdani reaffirmed his commitment to one of his most controversial campaign promises, that he would order the police department to arrest Prime Minister Benjamin
Yeah, that's
Netanyahu
the next step.
if we were to come to New York City. I mean, yeah, maybe if this line is, yeah, go ahead.
The first line, Mamdani has said he would be honoring the warrant issued by the International Criminal Court charging Netanyahu with crimes against humanity in Gaza. Well, this is interesting for a couple reasons. I just want to take a moment and kind of marinate on this for a second, Matt. This is interesting because, just a couple days ago, what did we learn from all the fucking leftists on Twitter about Mamdani and arresting Netanyahu? That he didn't want to do it, that he backed away from it, right? And here it is in this big New York Times piece that is also now telling us that he's turned his back on fighting for Palestinian rights and has become a Zionist, right? I mean, pick a fucking lane and do it. If you're going to cite something and try to use it to justify your argument, do the basic due diligence of checking it out. And the reason that this exists, I mean, we can go through the rest of the piece before I make my final spiel about it. Now, the big thing about him and Zionism is, and this is where this kind of quote comes from, that he's a quote, not anti-Zionist. An anti-Zionist, is you have to remember that like the New York Times position on this is one of the most insane and ridiculous understandings of a very basic moral human rights based approach to the world, which is that somebody who is an anti-Zionist is somebody who wants to see the violent destruction of their enemies. They probably have blood dripping out of the side of their mouth, right? And when Zohran, with his human-based politics, with his human rights-based politics, is understanding and kind of folks to say like, whoa, that's what he can't be an anti-Zionist, because an anti-Zionist, has to act in this kind of absurd and cartoonish and outlandish way that we expect him to. This is the sourcing for the anti-Zionism. Ready? Brad Lander, the city comptroller and the former mayoral candidate, was a key validator and ally in liberal Jewish communities, shrugged off the candidate's promise to arrest Netanyahu, refusing to comment on the record. What's important, Lander said, is a different promise Mamdani made on the night of the primary when he said, quote, "I'm going to reach out and listen and try to understand." And he has more than lived up to that commitment. Lander recalled sitting with Mamdani as a group of Orthodox Jews described being called anti-Semitic slurs on the street, and he said, quote, "He was just very human, empathetic listener," he said. And in that case, he just communicated clearly that he thought that was awful. Great. And I think that's a wonderful thing, and I think it's a great thing to include in the piece.
Do they have the "we're going to show how it is" quote in this?
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah.
So you wanted to take us through that?
Yeah, by now we are approaching his campaign office, stuck in a crammed Manhattan service elevator with a very large security guard. With my time running out, the candidate made his response quick, signaling that this interview was now over. Quote, "Is this a campaign promise that's compatible with governing?" Per those contradictions there. And his response was, "We're going to show how it is." That is to me not like I would frankly on this sort of promise, not expect such a clear doubling down on a huge something that's going to, if he does, I mean, he's not going to arrest Netanyahu. What will happen is Netanyahu just doesn't make an attempt to appear in the city. Mm-hmm. If I had to guess, and if he goes through a term and Netanyahu doesn't visit, which is possible, that is amazing.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this is that'd be a gift to the world.
It'd be nice if like Ben Gavir wasn't allowed here too. Like all these motherfuckers. I haven't been so disgusted as finding out that guy was speaking like a couple miles away from me. It's so gross.
So here we are. The mystery is solved. Has Zohran turned his back on his principles? No. So why is it that this shit is getting pumped out all the time? And again, I can't figure out what's going on with everybody. Sometimes maybe they are just trying to be malicious. Oftentimes, though, I think a lot of people are just frankly lazy and confused. And one of the worst things about the kind of current information system that we're in is that you can have just a very tiny, teensy tiny bit of understanding and propagate it out to the world where it's going to get a lot of engagement. Because look, people should be outraged. If Zohran came out and he said, I am like, now I love Zionism, I think that what they're doing is correct, and I support it, and I'm against Palestine, all this kind of stuff, you should be outraged. But what these people are doing is trying to trick you and to capture that human good emotion that you have, which is support for Palestinian people, the belief in a better world, and a correct suspicion of people who are pursuing positions of power. And they're trying to utilize that for their own ends. And what's truly amazing about this kind of thing is that there isn't even, oh, this is like out of context. It's like, you didn't even go and do the smallest amount of investigation to even be able to pick up a position, right? Because last week it was that Zohran is not going to arrest Netanyahu. Now it's that he is, and that might be a big problem. That's what's in the pieces that you're engaging with. So, you're not even doing the basic amount of like diligence, research, engagement to be able to say these kind of things. Now, you might disagree with me, and you might not think that Zoran's position is strong enough. I would disagree. I think that there's a reason that the Zionist lobby in this country has been fighting tooth and nail to defeat this person, that they would want nothing more than to see him defeated, right? But you may disagree. But you got to go and you got to click through. And even if you don't have the time to read the long, long piece, just do Control F and check out Israel, Gaza, these words, and you will have a deeper understanding than raging on fucking Twitter like people have been doing for the past couple of days. So this is just one example of many, but I want people to be very, very careful about this because this is something that I think has gotten worse in the past few years, and I think it has particularly gotten worse among the left. I don't spend a lot of time on right-wing parts of the internet, so who knows there. I care about our side, and I care about people not trying to misdirect the rage and frustration and energy that people have around this issue towards some kind of dead-end politics that is against actually achieving a lot of the things that we've been setting out to do for a very, very long time.